Medium tanks, the bread and butter of War Thunder. At low tier, typically these tanks are relatively lightly armored. The Panzer IV and early Shermans all can be easily panned by even low skill players. However, one medium tank at low tier that is overshadowed by the main tech trees does not fit in with these tanks. I present to you the Canadian M4A5 Ram 2. To start us off, this Canadian beast sits at a BR of 3.7. When you hear the name of this tank, you probably think it's some Canadian version of the M4 Sherman. However, it is not even based on it. The Ram is armed with the 57mm 6-pounder cannon, which may seem weak, but it's more than capable at this BR. This gun is actually used on the Cromwell 1 in the British tech tree, at the same BR as the Ram. A notable thing to mention about this tank and its gun is that it actually has a vertical stabilizer, which is similar to the M4's. This makes firing on the move a bit easier, however I still do not advise firing on the move. The gun has an outstanding reload of 5.2 seconds with a standard crew, and 4 seconds max with an ace crew. The reload is outstanding as it outclasses the Panzer IVs, T-34s, and many other common mediums at the tier. Now you might be wondering, it has a great reload, but it's only a 57mm gun. Wouldn't it suck compared to the 75 and 76mm at this tier? The answer is a hard no. Shot Mark 9, an amazing shell. 122mm of maximum penetration, and a velocity of 801 meters per second. This is your main shell. If you aren't using it, then I guess you're into pain or something. You literally get it for free because it's a premium tank and all the modifications are unlocked. A small letdown with this shell is the post-penetration effect. However, if you are an experienced player who can easily tell where to shoot most tanks, this won't be an issue. However, if you are a newer player or just less experienced, try using protection analysis on common foes to figure out where to shoot. For machine guns, you are armed with 3 7.62mm machine guns. One is roof mounted and another is coaxial mounted. And uniquely, one is mounted on a completely independent turret. If you are familiar with the British Crusader, it follows a similar concept. This little turret can come in handy sometimes when fighting vehicles with exposed crew, so keep it in mind. To finish off this section, the gunner's optics has a decent 3.9 times zoom. This isn't great, but since you'll mainly be fighting in close quarters combat through the BR, you won't be really sniping anyway. Armor is a strong point of this tank. It has many odd angles and armor values that make it tricky to penetrate from the front. As I mentioned before, this tank is not based on the M4 Sherman. It is actually based on the M3 Lee. It's hard to notice from a glance, but side by side, the similarities are pretty apparent. The 88.9mm frontal plate has an effective thickness of around 130mm to 190mm, easily bouncing most shells thrown at you. This plate normally soaks up most of the fire. The 50.8mm lower frontal plate has an effective thickness of around 30mm to 80mm. Most shells will go through this, however I have noticed it only takes out the transmission and maybe the driver and the machine gunner. It depends on the shell, of course. The turret mantlet, which is 69.85mm, has an effective thickness of around 70mm. Despite this thinner armor, shells have trouble going through due to the secondary armor behind the mantlet, which provides an extra 38mm of effective thickness. You have one main weak spot, which is the driver's hatch. However, when this is penetrated head on, it will knock out 2 of your crew, and considering that you have 5, you'll still be able to function. Sometimes, shells will kill more than 2, and sometimes 3, leading to a crew knockout. If a shell managed to penetrate the right side, most likely the machine gunner will be killed, along with the gunner and commander. You still have 2 crew members left, allowing you to escape. Angling is advised in this tank, as it will make the driver's hatch harder to pen, and due to the oddly angled sides, you will bounce a lot of shells, even in close quarters. Your ammo is stored on the floor of the tank. If you put too many shells, it will start being stored in the turret. I'd suggest a max of 40 shells, as any more will just result in lots of ammo blowouts. A unique feature of this tank that typically only high tier tanks have is the engine smoke system. Similar to smoke grenades, it deploys a smoke screen that conceals your tank. It works pretty well and will get you out of most situations. Overall, the armor in the Ram is solid. It's reliable, but you should still try not to expose yourself too much, as an experienced player will know where to shoot to kill. Your crew can normally hold out, and due to 5 crew members, you'll often be able to get out of bad situations. The Ram 2 has a 400 horsepower engine, which allows for a max speed of 40 km per hour, making it a very capable tank in terms of speed. In reverse, however, Canada really took some heritage from the British at this tier. You go a really slow 5.2 kilometers an hour, which makes it difficult to get out of situations. In combat conditions, such as swerving and going through mud, you can expect it to go 30 to 35 kilometers an hour. Turning while stationary is pretty average, however, despite this, it allows for quick adjustments for angling in tense combat situations. Your horizontal turret traverse speed is 17 degrees per second, which is actually pretty good. I haven't had much problems with it. Combining it with your turning and you will be able to aim pretty fast. Your gun depresses at a max of -7 degrees. It works pretty well, however I notice that I rarely even use it, as I am normally fighting on flat ground and in urban environments. Another thing to note is your vertical guidance speed, which is 3.3 degrees per second. It's pretty bad, but not too noticeable, as all tanks at the tier pretty much feel like this. .7 is a pretty small BR in the US tree. However, you can still bring out a few tanks. With the M4A5, you can bring the classic M4 Sherman with its 75mm gun. You can also bring the M24 Chaffee, which has pretty much the same gun as the M4 Sherman, which uses the same shells and it has the same penetration. Finally, you can bring the M16 MGMC and the M10 GMC, if you are feeling lucky of course. The M4A5 is an all-around versatile machine. Its gun is very potent along with its superb armor. Do I recommend this tank? Yes, definitely. I would not recommend it for grinding the whole tree, but if you want a tank that's just generally fun to play, this is the one you might want. It is also very beginner friendly and easy to learn. I learned how to use it properly in under a day. Thank you for watching. The main way to support this channel is to subscribe, so if you did enjoy the video or learn something from it, why not subscribe? It could probably help you in the future as well. Viper out.